Penguin Random House Audio presents The Sun and the Moon and the Rolling Stones. This is the author, Rich Cohen. You tell me. I don't know. What's it like to live in a world where the Stones were always there? For you, there's always been the sun and the moon and the Rolling Stones. Keith Richards in Conversation, 1994. Chapter 1. Rock Stars Telling Jokes. When it happens fast. I was sitting on the stoop of my West Village apartment, waiting without knowing it. In the summer, the city smells like trash. The streets are desiccated, empty. It seems as if everyone has gone off to the mountains or the sea, leaving the ne'er-do-wells to haunt the red brick alleys. Then, just like that, I was carried away by the Rolling Stones. It was akin to my childhood dream of running off with the circus, the Midway, the strongman, the Ferris wheel revolving against the flat Kansas sky. In 1994, I was 26 years old, and the Stones were crossing America. I'd been assigned a report on the tour for Rolling Stone magazine. I'd been bored, but I was not bored anymore. In the next 2 weeks, I crossed half the continent. I stood in the corners of a dive bar as the Stones played their warm-up gig, got drunk in arenas open to the sky, dozed in hotel lobbies and dressing rooms, leaned against a speaker at the edge of the stage as the band played its encore, saw my country through rock star eyes, airports and towns becoming an insubstantial blur. Only the next show was real. I sat beside Keith Richards on the Stones plane, goofed with Mick Jagger, who made fun of my hair when it was long and more fun of my hair when it was short, talked to Charlie Watts about New Orleans and the Civil War, then sat in his hotel room listening to jazz. I drank whiskey with Ron Wood and Bobby Keys when they got word that their friend and colleague, the pianist Nicky Hopkins, had died in Nashville. Keys grimaced, then tossed back 4 fingers of Jack Daniels, eyes filled with tears. In New York, we stayed 50 blocks from my apartment, but 100 miles from my old life. It had been summer. Now it was fall. Glittery Manhattan, the endless avenues. I spent one long day at Radio City, watching the Stones rehearse for the MTV Video Music Awards. The appearance was to goose sales of their new album, Voodoo Lounge, but for the musicians it was just a quick hit between somewhere and somewhere else just like it. I didn't even go by my apartment, nor see friends. The circus had stopped in my town, but I was different, having been remade by proximity to the greatest sword swallowers, high-wire artists, and sideshow freaks in the world. I hung out with the band instead, lingering backstage as Keith Richards and Ron Wood traded acoustic licks on Hank Williams tunes. Sat in the empty theater as Mick Jagger snaked down the aisle, playing the sinewy harmonica intro to the single, Love is Strong. On the way back to the dressing rooms, I had an encounter greater even than my childhood encounter with Joe DiMaggio before an old-timers game. The Yankee Clipper shouted at reporters, "Can't you sons of bitches see I'm naked?" Behind the curtain, Jagger and I bumped into Bruce Springsteen, who regarded us warily. It was a look I'd seen in high school, on the faces of rival linebackers. There was a mumbled exchange, a comparing of notes. Mick introduced me as his good friend. As we went away, Jagger shrugged, playground style, whispering something like, "Well, you know Bruce, he gives a very long concert." That night after the show, Virgin Records threw a party for the Stones at the Four Seasons Hotel on 57th Street. Empty at midnight, it was packed by 2. Crowded with rock stars who'd once filled posters on my bedroom wall. There was music, leather, eyeshadow, Spanish heels, gin. Mick's publicist told Mick that Steven Tyler wanted to have a picture taken, just the 2 of you. "What do you think?" asked Jagger. "Give it a miss," said the publicist. "Tyler wants people to think Aerosmith is up with the Stones, whereas, in fact, come on, Mick." The publicist talked about a New York Post article on the band's recourse to body waxing. It had been written by a reporter who'd covered the Stones for years. "She's enjoyed life on the inside," said the publicist. "Let's see how she likes life on the outside." One of the Stones' people pushed me against a wall and asked me to come upstairs and blow a joint. Slipping away, I found myself in a circle of rock and roll masters. Steve Winwood of Traffic, Jim Capaldi, that band's drummer, Ron Wood, and Keith Richards. Though each had his own identity, they seemed to share a single face. Creased and beaten, aged like leather, pounded by abuse into a kind of beauty. An old guy, getting a close look at Jagger, once said, "You have more wrinkles than I do." "They're laugh lines," said Mick. The guy guffawed. "Nothing's ever been that funny." But the guy was wrong. There has been something that funny. Mainly, the joke that this generation of rock stars played on fate, which had them marked for lives of quiet desperation in factories and insurance firms, but instead set them up like medieval princes in frock coats and buckles. A life that for centuries had been the sole entitlement of the debauched nobility. Each man in that circle had electric energy and strung-out glory, drank too much, stayed out too late, brain fried and fingers gnarled, but my God, could they play. These were the last of the great rock stars, a species that's going the way of the snow leopard. Those who survive are precious and strange, relics of an ancient dispensation. That era when the music mattered above all else, when you believed the next album would clarify everything. The men in that circle were human expressions of that belief, heroes who established the revolution, then followed it to the end. They stood laughing and drinking, telling dirty jokes. "Did you guys hear the one about the pianist who was playing songs for his producer?" Capaldi asked. "He plays two beautiful songs saying the first is called 'My Dick is Long' and the next is called 'My Penis is Huge.' Then he goes to the bathroom. When he returns, the producer says, 'Do you know your fly is open and your dick's hanging out?' 'Know it,' says the pianist. 'I wrote it.'" Richards leaned back and roared, "Know it, I wrote it." As the men laughed, it hit me. I'd always sensed there were people somewhere having more fun than me. I'd always believed there was a better party, and there was, and I'd found it. No need to check my messages, look over someone's shoulder, wonder where to go next. I was at the center of the best party in the world. For the first time in my life, I was exactly where I wanted to be. "What about you?" Capaldi asked. "Do you have a joke?" I told him I did not, that I was, in many ways, humorless. Steve Winwood looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. A legend of British rock, author of Back in the High Life Again and Higher Love, and before that a driving force behind the Spencer Davis Group, Blind Faith, and Traffic. Winwood was 46 with tousled hair and a needle-sharp face. When I told him I worked for Rolling Stone, his sharp eyes became accusatory. "You know, you're a bastard," he said suddenly. "A nasty bastard. I've been waiting years to tell you that, and there it is, you nasty bastard." "Hey, Stevie, do you know this kid?" asked Ron Wood, surprised. "Hell yes. This bastard has trashed every solo album I've ever released. You think there's no life after Traffic?" Winwood went on. "What was I supposed to do, lay down and die when the band broke up? Well, I won't die for you. No, I won't die for you." There was an awkward silence, then everyone cracked up. It got an even bigger laugh than, "Know it, I wrote it." Taking my arm, Keith said, "You're crazy, Stevie. You're talking about fucking 1974. This kid was 6 years old. What does he know about Traffic?" "You do know Rolling Stone is a magazine, not a person," Wood added. Just then I had my second epiphany. Time would always separate me from these guys, from this generation. I'd missed everything. 1964, 1969, 1972. Those were the years that mattered. I'd been born too late. Whatever happened had happened already. I'd spent my entire life trying to reach this party. By the time I got there, everyone was old. Belatedness. It's the condition.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?